Speaking of cognitive decline, we always like to end on a fun, crazy, weird article, and this one checks all those boxes. I know I'm showing my bias, but the Elon Musk DOGE team has been running amok. As if you've been following the news at all, it's hard to avoid it, regardless if you think it's necessary or not. And I think, of course, there's probably a little bit of both. There's an article in Fast Company talking about how the team may have a bit of a challenge, and that is in understanding COBOL,
Hmm.
because so many of these systems are in fact running on COBOL. And there's at least some reports that that Musk was out there talking about how he uncovered all this fraud for these people that are 150 years old, and early indications are that that's actually a function of COBOL coding that has some date limitations.
Hmm.
Some of the, by the way, if you weren't keeping track or weren't around back then, the Y2K thing was also spurred by the same thing, COBOL's really bizarre date limitations. So I think it's hilarious. As an old COBOL programmer myself, it's hilarious. I joke that this is my retirement plan, that all else fails, I will go back and become a COBOL programmer, because there's all these challenges, and the US government is probably the greatest, largest remaining user of COBOL. So I guess the Doge team is going to have to do some brushing up.
Yes, I find this process quite odd as someone who is a former data analyst and, as I said before, FinOps person, where a lot of FinOps starts with audits of IT systems. I'm fairly I'm pretty informed on how you go about auditing an IT system and auditing for cost and auditing to cut costs. My entire firm is based on the IT rule of 30. Each unmanaged IT cost center has on average 30% in costs that can be cut. Like, I am a big fan of cutting costs and digging in. But I also know that when you're doing this type of audit, you need people who understand the underlying code that puts the data into place. You need to know which tables go with which other tables and data sources, because your original data source is usually really bad. It was created 30 or 40 years ago with a totally different set of circumstances and assumptions. And often these legacy codes are being used to show all sorts of different things that have changed over the next 20 or 30 or 40 years. So whether something is true or false, on or off, being paid or not being paid, it could reflect all sorts of different things, and you need to go look at all of the other tables and metadata and processes simply to have an idea of what it means. And I know that, and I don't know the Social Security database, but I know for certain it is not something you can master in 2 days and find any sort of meaningful results. I don't care who you are. I know Elon Musk is the smartest man in the world, but I just know that you can't do that, and there are no accountants involved, which I find also extremely weird. You need your data and your programmers, obviously, but you also need your accountants. So I don't know what these people are doing, but I'm sure we'll find out more and more over time.
Well, I mean, on one hand, I don't envy them, because I think they're rapidly, the low-hanging fruit of saying, I'm going to, fire the 200,000 probationary workers, okay, that's easy stuff. What,
Yep.
right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, that's easy. Now they're getting into stuff that's hard, and it's been this way, and the system's been in place for a long time, because it's hard to undo this, or to fix it, or to really modernize it, or even understand it. And so it's I think it's going to be a challenge for them. I do think it's interesting. I mean, just from putting on the political hat for a minute, apparently privately, there's many Democrats that are sort of being wistful about it, because everyone recognizes there's a ton of bloat. Everyone
Mhm.
recognizes that I don't consider the deep state as in like nefarious, but there's no question that there's a massive amount of organizational inertia. These federal agencies have been in place for 50 years or longer, with systems that predate almost anybody alive,
Mhm.
and trying to figure out how to manage and navigate through it is no easy task. And for the most part, and this is the only thing I will give Elon Musk credit for, most part people have lacked the courage and the political will to actually address it. And so I give him credit for actually doing it, but it's just bull in the china shop sort of mentality, and the whole move fast, break things mentality, which they seem to be embracing, just isn't going to fly in these environments. And so I think we're all sort of bracing for the fallout. But I just
Yeah.
personally found it somewhat humorous, the whole harking back to the COBOL days.
And I do find it, so I will say the part that I do like is they are going into the code to look at what's going on. They are looking directly at the data sources, the primary source of data, to figure out what is going on from there. Hopefully they figure out all the other layers that are involved in federal government services, the processes, the workflows. Hey, I've heard that workflows are important. Uh,
Well, I've decided that what they need is the voice of reason. So I volunteered us to join the Doge team to try to get in there and help them fix these problems. So, we
Yeehaw, let's
report
go,
next week.
partner.